money from one point of problem to a point of solution. And this resolution to exchange value for wealth is what differentiates the rich from the poor, the less from the more. And more than your desire to make more money, please have a resolution to make more people. Make more people smile and make more people laugh. Make more people live and make more people love. And in the end, you would have made people enough that money begins to make itself available to you. Yeah. So I leave this with this line. I'm standing right in front of you behind the mark with a hope to get paid, because I have something to say for which you are willing to pay, either with your time or money, because I have something to say. So when they say money doesn't grow on trees, maybe it's just a line our fathers used to say, I just paid your school fees when you asked for a cup of ice cream. But really, as for me and my family, money will grow on our family trees, because I'm standing right here on the ground on which I have sown a seed. Thank you very much. I will touch you.
Make some noise. Adigun Olushola Oladeji, aka Solar Speaks. Thank you for that. By the way, Solar Speaks, there's a tree right outside this hall. There's some money there for you if you're interested.
Nigeria's bustling financial
Now,
landscape.
it's a thing of pride for WMA Bank when it comes to the journey so far, from moving from a regional to a national bank, from being the first bank when it comes to the innovative digital banking. 6 years a lot has been with us, and of course, after over 3 million downloads later, the story has only just begun. Ladies and gentlemen, please turn your attention to the multimedia screen to understand how this came about and what the future holds for WMA Bank.
In the heart of Nigeria's bustling financial landscape, a story unfolds, a tale of global transformation. In the heart of Nigeria's bustling financial landscape, a story unfolds, a tale of global transformation, strategic innovation, and profound impact. This is the story and the legacy of Nigeria's most innovative bank and foremost financial institution, WMA Bank. WMA Bank was founded on May 2nd, 1945, under the old name of Agbomagbe Bank Limited. The bank was renamed WMA Bank in 1969, marking the launch of the bank's rise to prominence. From being listed on the Nigerian Stock Exchange in 1990 to being granted a universal banking license by the Central Bank of Nigeria in February 2001, and then becoming a regional bank in 2009. The bank made steady progress over the years. A significant part of WMA Bank's journey was the upgrade of its regional banking license to a national license in 2015. This milestone spearheaded the beginning of a revolutionary decade in the WMA Bank journey. The first 2 years after the upgrade saw the bank re-strategize and innovate to create more and better solutions to positively impact the lives of customers and support their goals. The first and arguably the biggest of these innovative solutions created since becoming a national bank was the launch of Africa's first fully digital bank, Alert, in 2017. Through the game-changing Alert platform, WMA Bank redefined banking through a wide array of reliable, seamless, and intersectional banking services, all accessible on Alert, making Alert a one-stop app for every financial need. From conventional banking services like transfers and recharges to advanced features like shopping discounts, flight bookings, affordable insurance plans, cheap health consultations, and much more. Alert has raised the standards of banking in Nigeria and created a truly rewarding banking experience for all. Over 3 million customers have been onboarded on the platform, with over 500,000 previously unbanked persons onboarded in the past year. However, Alert was just the beginning. Since 2017, WMA Bank has launched a massive variety of solutions that cut across various aspects of life and impact Nigerians of all ages, financial capacities, and in all locations. Over 200,000 people have benefited from our monthly financial literacy sessions and SME clinic events with significant impact on their knowledge of earning, saving, spending, and investments. Because we understand that our financing choices can enable the necessary transition to a greener and more sustainable economy, we launched a green energy finance facility to enable SMEs and individuals reduce their emissions through power generation. This facility provides opportunities for SMEs to access up to 10 million naira for renewable energy solutions in their business operations. In alignment with SDG 5, gender equality, and the bank's commitment to the United Nations Women Empowerment Principles, UNWEP, WMA Bank, through its female proposition, Sarah by WMA, have disbursed over 263 million naira to over 1,000 female entrepreneurs under the Sarah Gender Loan Bundle with free health care at no collateral. Over 23 billion naira has been availed to women-owned and led businesses, out of which 4.3 billion naira is uncollateralized lending. Over 50,000 women reached via access to market programs. But beyond all this, our corporate mission still remains: empowering lives through innovation. Our commitment is continue to create useful solutions to meet the dynamic needs of the populace with initiatives centered on social equity and diversity, empowerment, hybrid working models, and sustainable business practices. To the youth, we are an enabler of goals. To the underprivileged and underrepresented, we are an equalizer. To the established, we are a driver for greater success. To the businesses, we are a partner like none other. To the finance industry, we are the leading light and the pace setters. To the nation, we are champions of development. To the world, we are facilitators of innovation, empowerers of communities, and promoters of sustainability. And to us, you are everything. This journey is just getting started. Join us as we redefine the standards of banking and financial services in Africa and make an indelible contribution to shaping the future. Remember, we are with you all the way. In the heart of Nigeria's bustling financial landscape, a story unfolds, a tale of...
I'm sure we can do much better than that. A round of applause to WMA Bank. Those of you joining us online, great to have you with us. Welcome to the maiden edition of the Hackaholics Digital Summit, the fourth edition of Hackaholics as well. Social media is a very powerful tool in this time and age. A lot of innovation has come about through the use of social media. Yes, there's the good, there's the bad, and there's the ugly, but when some good things happen via social media, it's one of the reasons you're thankful that innovation technology is here to stay. So please do not forget to follow at WMA Bank and at Alat by WMA, and the conversation hashtag Hackaholics Digital Summit on hashtag Hackaholics 4.0. It takes a village to raise a child, they say. Now, in as much as WMA Bank is at the forefront of the digital innovation, digital banking as well, they didn't get here alone, and they are going to go much further with some of the partners that they have built over the years. I want to give a special shout out to the following partners who have made this particular summit a success. Please, just a round of applause as I mention their names: Flutterwave, Lakasera, GoLearn, Microsoft, Endeavor Africa, GetRaise, Eco Innovation Center, Paystack, Phonema, and DreamSpace. Thank you so much for partnering with WMA Bank on this. And I mentioned earlier on that we do have our first panel session, and what a session it will be for the maiden edition of the Digital Summit. But before that, we have a keynote address. And for you to have a sense of who will be coming on stage, He's a man, some would say, needs no introduction, but we want to just give you the benefit of the doubt that you do not know who GB is. Olubenga Agbola, better known as GB, is the founder and CEO at Flutterwave, an organization committed to changing the landscape of payments in the African continent. He's been instrumental in driving financial innovation in Africa, and his company has helped bridge the gap between African businesses and the global market, making it easier for companies to transact and expand their operations. He is a serial entrepreneur with 2 exits under his belt, and GB has over 15 years of experience in building scalable financial technology firms. He's been instrumental in leading the development of fintech solutions for several organizations and financial institutions such as PayPal, Standard Bank, and Google, amongst others. His last fintech venture focused on easy alternative payment methods and was acquired by a top bank in Nigeria. Under his leadership, Flutterwave has expanded its services to multiple African countries and has been involved in partnerships and collaborations to enhance financial inclusion and access across the continent. Some say, for those of you, if you heard the word OG, you know what that means. But this is GB, and he's the OG when it comes to Hackaholics. Please do make welcome for the keynote address, the one and only Olubenga GB Agbola. Make some noise, people. I also have the link to where he got his footwear. If you're interested in that, I'll be glad to hook you up. Please show some love to GB.
Good morning, everyone. Great to be here today. I'm very grateful to WMA Bank for inviting me to this event today. Flutterwave's story is not complete without WMA Bank. I feel like I'm an employee of WMA Bank at the moment because I'm an ID card yet. I will start by introducing myself a little bit more and share with you the Flutterwave story, as well as also how fintech is evolving today in Nigeria and the world beyond. So we didn't just get here because one day we decided to create a company from nowhere. No, it's a journey of many, many years. I started my career with PayPal in the UK as a software engineer, actually, a couple of years ago. After PayPal, I worked for a bunch of banks all over the UK, GT Bank as well. After GT Bank, I moved to Africa for Standard Bank. After that, I worked for Sterling Bank, I worked for Google, worked for Access Bank before Flutterwave. And I think, one thing that's been very critical for us, for me personally, is the dedication and the passion of the people at WMA Bank. It's really inspiring, right? I'm not saying that because I'm on this stage this morning. I'm saying that because they've enabled me to be on this stage, both the physical stage and the virtual stage, with their sacrifices and support for fintechs. I know because of where we are one. WMA is not just a bank. It's a 75-year-old fintech, in my opinion, with so many innovative leadership, across board, and that constant, opportunity that helps people like us to grow and scale across the ecosystem. Now, as you know, in the world today, fintech is growing and scaling. We are still hearing so many buzzword fintech, but I believe very strongly that fintech is really complementing the banking infrastructure. And there's no other place you can get that right now apart from WMA Bank, and obviously enabling the growth of fintech in Nigeria and beyond. There's almost no fintech you will see today in this country that does not have a WMA Bank API in the infrastructure. WMA Bank is somewhere in there. And that speaks to how much they've become a platform bank. And in the way, platform innovation is way bigger than just building. I think the bank has evolved so much from building alerts to building the platform that new alerts can be built. I said we're here today, for example, on this event today, right? And I think one of the biggest value that we see is the fact that fintech and innovation are going to create a bridge between current infrastructure and new ones, right? There's so many niche solutions you can see across board. I met a gentleman earlier today who is building something for schools, for example. And obviously, whilst the bank will provide a platform to bank them and bank the schools and provide the API, they are able to go deeper and solve a problem that is niche to that sector because of the platform the bank has provided. And that is the bedrock of innovation. Not just innovation, but building innovation. If you look around us today, innovation, we all know the innovation of the iPhone, where Apple built the first touchscreen device, and which we all use today. But the iPhone is no more innovative, in my opinion. It's now the platform for new innovation. A lot app is on the iPhone. So many apps are on the iPhone. And those apps are creating new innovation as well on the existing iPhone innovation, right? And that's what I call the value chain of innovation, right? Innovation that drives new innovation, not stops new one. And that's what I think is a big deal that we need to think about as we go about in this innovation age. And obviously, you can't innovate without collaboration, right? A big piece of that is what we're seeing here today, where the bank is encouraging new people to bring their own ideas, and the bank is literally funding those ideas for you to scale. That scale is happening because you are sitting on the shoulders of a giant that's built an amazing infrastructure that we can all leverage on, right? And we have been there leveraging that exact infrastructure for our own growth. So what is very important to mention in my notes today is the symbolic nature of that infrastructure that allows this to happen and allows new companies to be created because of the platform the bank has made available, right? Which you don't see most banks doing, to be very honest, right? WMA is so unique in that respect, in the sense that it's a bank that is allowing new infrastructure to be built on its platform without literally anything, right? And that is big. Today, we know that Amazon is a big innovation, but Amazon does not exist without the USPS in the US or payment infrastructure that works. The fact that you can go to Amazon and order groceries if you're in the US and get the grocery in 2 hours is because the system that powers logistics works well in the US. So that's an example of platform level innovation, right? Where obviously a bank like WMA is allowing people like FlutterWave, another fintech in Nigeria, and all the young guys here to build their vision on a platform that they are constantly trading and investing in. And the power of hackathon is very important. We have also been here before. I recall in 2015, I was in one hackathon in Arkansas in the US, in Little Rock. It's a FIS hackathon program where I was in the audience like this pitching FlutterWave, right? And we did that hackathon. And what is interesting is hackathons provide an opportunity for access that you don't ordinarily have. Today here you have the MD of the bank. You have access to him here. I'm very sure if you go to his office, you won't get a meeting invite. That is what these things create. It gives you access, right? And access are the bedrock of collaboration, which helps to foster the next level of innovation in our opinion. Obviously, all these kinds of programs, they can fuel groundbreaking innovation, massive groundbreaking innovation. I recall our hackathon in 2015 where we were just part of that, and that gave us a platform to build for global payment, enablement for our business. That is an example of what can happen to anybody here if they really tap into this and harness the value for their companies. I also believe a lot in what we call global, being global yet local. The uniqueness of Nigeria, right? Our policies in Nigeria are very unique to our environment, to our growth, to our demographic, to so many factors. And very strongly, I think building solutions that will solve problems for the market is so critical, right? Whilst the world is about AI and all of that is happening right now, but in Nigeria today, we still have problems whereby, like I heard today, paying for train ticket is still a problem in Nigeria today. How can we solve basic problems that can actually impact people? Trust me, people will pay for convenience. that gentleman earlier said tech can drive comfort. I agree with you, right? Building technology to solve real problems in our society can drive a lot of groundbreaking value to be created. So I think it's very important to emphasize building for local culture. That's what WMA has done, for example, with Alert. Alert is an app that I also use, by the way, and it's so easy to sign up, log in, do your transaction, because it's built for the Nigerian in mind, with all the nuances of our Nigerian culture being taken into consideration. That is so critical and important. And I think as we are building for local relevance is way more important than just building for building's sake. In a nutshell, innovation is not just for innovation's sake. Innovation is for value. If value is not being created, then obviously we're not innovating well enough for whatever we have. And I think I'd like to encourage the young guys here today, the young engineers, young developers, young entrepreneurs, the top 10 finalists, congratulations. I think it's important to look at where you are right now as a place of privilege. You're here because obviously a bank built a strategy to deliberately and intentionally go after you and use their platform to fuel your own growth. And I think that opportunity should not be taken for granted. It should be harnessed with every level of sales that you can imagine to create that value, right? In closing, I want to emphasize the importance of this. If a lot more banks were doing this, for example, imagine what I would do to Nigeria. So I'm very proud of the leadership of WMA Bank in building. It's not easy to get on like it's expensive, it's time consuming. All the execs are here, they can be making a lot more money for the bank, but they're here today because they believe so much in that innovation. And I must say that I'm very proud that WMA Bank is a bank, as big as the bank is, little guys like us we have a voice in WMA Bank, and that's amazing. You know, seeing that voice being also present here as well. A couple of weeks ago, we launched Swap, a partnership with WMA Bank, which we built to the bank, and that was designed to help the average Nigerian on the street solve a retail FX issue. And that's an example of how the bank is just inherently innovative. You know, we did that project in like 2, 3, 4 weeks. From the MD to the everybody supported that project. And that's an example of the will. This bank has the will to make things happen. And I'm proud to be, you know, in some way, shape, or form, be a part of the bank's, you know, partnerships. For us at Florida Wave, it's a privilege which we do not take for granted. Thank you again, WMA Bank, for your support. Thank you, sir. Thank you, SAS, for your support. For always being there for us as a bank, as a fintech, and spurring our growth. You know, like they say, if you want to go far, you go with people. We're proud. We are going with WMA Bank. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we could do much better than that. Big shout out to GB. To understand the scale of what he's achieved so far, it's beyond just Googling his name. It's seeing the impact of payment solutions transfers that Flutterwave has unleashed on not just Africa, but in the world. So please, a big shout out to one of our unicorns here. The conversation is still ongoing online. Those of you online, great to have you. Welcome to the Hackaholics and, of course, the maiden edition of the Digital Summit. And why the Digital Summit is very important is because of what we're about to do right now, which is our first panel session. Its topic is Pioneering Transformational Path, Empowering Ecosystem via People, Processing, and Technology. Now, if you look to your right or to your left, the person sitting next to you, especially those of you who are attending, could be the next GB, the next unicorn, the next innovator. And the beauty of innovation is that it doesn't respect gender, race, creed, whatever. As long as you have an idea that solves a problem, the solution will draw the right kind of crowd. The money will follow, yes, but the most important thing is that when people have somewhere to go to solve a problem, they will go there. And this session is going to shed more light on how that has impacted us, and you'll also get to hear from our top 10 that will be pitching after the lunch break. So without taking too much of your time, it is a great pleasure to welcome on stage the following panelists for this particular session. In no particular order, I would like to call on, and when I read their profile, please, I'd like the panelists to please just get up and start making their way to the chairs. And of course, those of you in the audience, a round of applause after I read out their profile. All in favor, say aye. You didn't really have a choice, actually, so it's okay. So first up is the Client Technology Lead, Financial Services Industry, Enterprise Commercial Africa at Microsoft. He's a seasoned technology leader with a strong track record of driving innovation and digital transformations within the financial service industry. Currently serving as the Client Technology Lead for the financial services industry at Microsoft, he is responsible for driving technology, strategy execution for the Microsoft customers in the banking, capital markets, insurance, and pension sector. Prior to his role at Microsoft, he held key positions in leading technology companies. As a business solutions lead and digital transformations architect at Oracle, he helped organizations in West Africa leverage enterprise applications to streamline their processes and achieve business excellence. Ladies and gentlemen, please do make welcome Wale. Okay, I thought you were going to shout back at me. Please do make welcome Wale Odeleye as our first panelist. Make some noise, people. I'm sure we can do much better than that. The next panelist is what I like to call the definition of innovation. Not because we were classmates in secondary school, and not because she is an MFR, probably one of the youngest till date. She's the general partner of HealthCap, an investment firm that focuses on early-stage investments in the healthcare and fintech industries, as well as infrastructure investment. She holds a bachelor's degree in medicine, master's in finance and economic policy major, and currently completing her PhD in finance with a focus on digital currencies and monetary policy. She has published 5 books, and her latest book is called Journey to the Series A. This book focuses on financing for technology companies, which is very crucial. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure, honor to invite on stage the one and only Dr. Ola Brown, MFR. And this is the time where I farms her and say, we went to the same school, we were classmates. It's very important who you sit next to in school. Very important. Once again, a round of applause to Dr. Ola Brown. Don't be hating, clap. Is it my fault you didn't sit next to her in school? The final panelist this morning is the Chief Innovation Officer at InterSwitch Group. A seasoned professional with 15 years of experience and expertise in fintech, compliance tech sectors, her illustrious career began at InterSwitch, where as a software engineer she played a crucial role in developing an enterprise platform pivotal to the company's collection and bill payment business across partner and digital channels, making InterSwitch prominent as a tech leader in the industry. And over the years, she's seamlessly transitioned from software development through a spectrum of key roles within the product development, product integration, project management, technical operations, and product management as well. One of her standout qualities is her adaptness to leveraging her breadth across product development and operation areas across various organizational components. Now, as the Chief Innovation Officer at InterSwitch, she is at the forefront of leveraging both the internal and third-party resources aiming to conceptualize and introduce groundbreaking product tailored for the dynamic African market. Also another friend of the house, the Chief Innovation Officer, InterSwitch Group. Ladies and gentlemen, please do make welcome the one and only Adaobi Okerikocha. The foot game at this summit is so on point. I'm going to be snapping pictures of that. I'm sure we can do much better than that. She's wearing a lat color. Come on, guys. If you notice, I only do that with the ladies, not with the guys. It's a great pleasure to bring on the moderator for today. He is the Chief Innovation and Transformation Officer at WMA Bank. It's okay. Now, GB mentioned that in his candid opinion, WMA Bank has been an innovative digital bank from the onset. And that legacy is one that has been the responsibility of people like the man I'm about to introduce. He's a seasoned professional in the banking and management consulting industry with a passion for driving transformation and innovation. And prior to his current position, he served as the management consultant at Accenture, where he honed his skills in strategic consulting and problem solving. His background in management consulting has equipped him with the ability to navigate complex business challenges and deliver tangible results. Currently serving as the Chief Transformation and Innovation Officer at WMA Bank, he brings a wealth of experience and expertise to the world of finance and technology. In his role, he is responsible for spearheading innovation initiatives, overseeing enterprise program management, implementing effective change management strategies, and harnessing the power of data analytics to drive the bank's growth and competitiveness. This is his brainchild as well. Please do make welcome the one and only Tunde Momoni. Okay. So I'm just going to give him a bro hug. So he'll be moderating this particular session. Once again, it's Pioneering Transformational Path. That's empowering ecosystems via people, processing, and technology. Just to make sure, our panelists, your microphones, are we good to go?
Mic check. Okay. Good morning, everyone, once again. And thank you to all our panelists for making time to join us here today. So just to quickly start, I think that we will need to set the frame of reference for the audience and basically just talk through, first and foremost, our own understanding or definition of what an ecosystem is, and then we sort of build the conversation out from there. So I guess I will start from Wale, just to tell us in quick words how you define or what you understand an ecosystem to be.
I think you can use mine. Thank you. So from a Microsoft point of view, we look at an ecosystem as an organized set of services and platforms that facilitate interactions between network participants. Now that's a very bogus term. The core of what makes an ecosystem what it is connectivity between people who are exchanging some form of value. And from a Microsoft point of view, we believe that as the primary provider of technology, that is our biggest responsibility to the digital economy. And so, for example, one of the things we do is we build our platforms for openness to allow innovative solutions to run on our platform that deliver industry services. We do have that policy that we don't go to market directly, because we believe that as a global organization, it's easy to lose touch with regional peculiarities. And so we facilitate ecosystem of digital participants who are able to deliver value to customers, to governments, and citizens across the world. That's our own definition.
Okay, thanks, Wale. So I think my first exposure or first recollection of the word ecosystem probably goes back to either elementary or high school biology, right? Dr. Ola, you have a science background, so I'm sure you can readily relate. So my next question, I guess, is to you to say, what fundamental features or characteristics distinguish the ecosystem concept from similar concepts such as the value chain or a supply chain? What makes it unique?
Okay. I think the first for Ola. Sorry. Oh, okay.
Yes. We'll come back to it.
Whenever I hear the word ecosystem, I always think about my first wedding anniversary because we went on a safari. And when you go on safari, you see some of the animals, they'll be working together. Some of them, they'll be chasing each other. Some of them are predators. Some of them are protecting each other. But it's not how it looks on TV. You see how they have all formed a cycle, and that's what keeps the entire environment alive. And they all feed off each other's energy in some way, shape, or form. And you get to witness how different creatures and plants can all come together to form something really, really amazing that represents the entire cycle of life, where they're all feeding off each other's energy and working against each other sometimes, but with each other most of the time, to create something really beautiful. And that's really what you witness when you go on a safari, and that's what I think when I think of an ecosystem. As opposed to a value chain where it's sort of linear, an ecosystem is sort of a bit of a maze, where you don't even sometimes understand how exactly two things are connected to each other, but they work symbiotically, they work together in a lot of ways to form something really incredible.
Right, thank you. So just to play that back quickly, we understand value chains to sort of be linear relationships, whereas ecosystems probably have a bit more complexity to them. So I'll come now to you, Adobe. So what makes this a compelling strategy for businesses today? It's a buzzword. We hear a lot these days, ecosystem this, ecosystem that. Why is it necessarily a better approach than, for instance, organizations standing alone and perhaps competing against each other in industry?
I think the advantage of that type of thinking is a multiplier effect. Right, like the panelist has said, when you're looking at an ecosystem, it's an aggregation of different components, different players, creating value, consuming value, so there's a seamless exchange that happens. What that means is that in an ecosystem, there's total independence. You have no control over what happens. You create the platform that enables that interaction. So whether it's a fintech solution that is producing a card, what you're doing is connecting card holders to their store of value, whether it's sitting in your wallet or in a bank. If you're looking at merchants, you're connecting merchants who are creating some kind of products or services for a consumer on the other end, right? It doesn't also stop the fact that merchants can also be interacting with other financial services as well. So the concept is that when you have that, when you have various ways of relationships, or when you have various ways that those components in those ecosystems interact, then it means that there is a multiplier effect, right? There's value that is created that is even outside of the control of the person who enables that interactions to happen. So that there is a multiplier effect.
Okay, great, thank you. Wale, so let me come back to you quickly. Based on the uniqueness of your role, both personally and of Microsoft as one of the perhaps largest enablers of enterprise globally, what would you describe as the current state of play for the ecosystem strategy in Nigeria?
Okay, so I think we've come a long way very quickly. And I think what has helped, much to my own surprise as a young person, is how quickly business leaders and government stakeholders took on the role of becoming enablers. Not everyone, but I remember like when WMA Bank went on the alert journey, and long before even the central bank had created governance principles around open banking, they had already defined clearly how it should work and how they should enable SMEs to build services on top of their platform where they now introduce governance. And I think that is what is going to help us. And that's why if you look at our own ecosystem play, it's the most mature in the entire continent. Even, I dare say, superior to South Africa, who are just larger than us in terms of market value, cumulative market value. And I think it's going to get better. We're starting to see, and at Microsoft in the financial advisory level where I play, we're starting to see other industries jump onto this. So we're starting to see insurance, pensions, healthcare, beginning to look at how can they leverage the success of what is happening within the fintech to introduce scale and additional value. And I like what is happening now, because what is then happening is people are no longer concerned about who is taking the glory, the optics. No, people are more concerned about let's get value out there, regardless of which platform is the delivery of that value. And that's what is happening now today.
Okay, thanks, Wale. I think I'd like to get additional perspectives from both Ola and Adobe based on your roles as operators or players within a particular sub-segment, if you will, of the ecosystem. So what's your take in terms of maturity?
So HealthCap is a venture capital firm. This is my second fund. My first fund actually was the first time that I met Benga in 2015 when we first invested in Flutterwave. We also invested in Paystack, and we were able to exit that investment in 2020. So this is a fund two, and we have 20 companies across Nigeria, Kenya, Egypt, and South Africa in our portfolio. Together they create 1,000 jobs and serve over 1 million customers across Africa in 10 different countries. So I have a really interesting perspective on ecosystems because we invest internationally. I can see what's happening across the ecosystem on the continent, and I can see how increasingly from Fund 1, which went from 2015, hardly any of our companies within our portfolio were working together. Whereas now, 2023, almost every company is working with several other startups in different ways to co-create the future and build additional value. And I think that this is so important because economically, if you look at venture capital and the impact that it has had in America, then it's such a tiny amount of money. It's 0.1% of GDP in America that goes into venture capital. But venture capital-backed companies produce 11% of America's workforce, almost all the new IPO listings, and at least almost half of the total market capitalization of the stock exchange. So I think that this ecosystem, for me, is not just about companies working together and creating value, but about the key to our economic prosperity as Nigeria and as a continent in Africa.
Thank you. Ada?
Yeah, I think I wanted to add on top of that two perspectives. So, I mean, for the ecosystem, a lot of organizations are beginning to realize that value is not just going to be created by the interactions that exist between you and your partners. It's going to be with you and other creator communities, right? So what we're doing here today in the Digital Summit is an example of how ideas could be coming from outside of the corporate partnership framework that we have, right? So that's one perspective. It's emerging, but it's stretching and extending beyond business partnerships to co-creating with universities, with the younger generation, with females, with the underserved communities. Those ideas and innovation are coming from that sector. I think the second perspective I wanted to bring is that there's industry convergence, right? So if you notice, the fintech space is really booming. There are lots of players in there, but that's also beginning to cross into other industries. So what you're beginning to find is that you're now seeing embedded finance in other industries. So when you have fintech playing a very strong role in another industry, we kind of call it embedded finance. But the point is that it's beginning to stretch beyond the fintech ecosystem, and that ecosystem is stretching and stretching, and what you're now seeing is an industry convergence. It's almost like the way we can't tell right now who is a bank and who is a fintech. That line is becoming, almost blurred. So again, the ecosystem in Nigeria, in Africa in general, is really thriving, is really booming. We're redefining what that should be as we collaborate more and more.
Okay. Thank you. Excellent perspectives all around. But I guess my logical next step would be, what are the existing gaps, sort of the issues? Where do we still have quite a lot of work to do in terms of improving or allowing this strategy to scale and to flourish? Just a quick recap, our topic is really pioneering a transformational path, empowering an ecosystem via people, processes, and technologies. Quite a dense topic, and we'll still unpack a bit, but I just want us to lay some foundations. So where are the cracks in the ecosystem? Yes, I'll start from here.
All right, I think I'll take it maybe from across different perspectives. With technology, I see technology as a knowledge area, right? People who are in tech need to grow the competency, right? What we're seeing is that as technology begins to evolve, there is also a gap on the talent side, right? So one of the gaps that we see is that either people coming into the industry from the universities into the industry have a gap, right? That's one of the things that I would say is a gap that exists in the ecosystem, because talent is a pipeline that feeds into that industry. And irrespective of the technology that you wield or that you have or that you've bought or that you've built, you still need people to drive that. So I would say that that's one of the gaps that we see. I would also maybe lean towards the process side as well, right? Because people work the process. But sometimes the process can in itself be a weak link, okay? How can organizations build products with some level of agility? How can they respond to the changes or to the needs that are happening all across them? Like GB said, I don't think there's anybody who is uniquely positioned to solve Africa's problem than African organizations and African talent, right? So while we are working on that talent side of things, but the process through which we pass value through, right, from demand to supply or from supply to demand is also equally important. So what are those frameworks that we can leverage within organizations to keep them agile, to get them to respond to the needs that are out there, to get them to see and discover the needs even much more quickly. Like I like to say that innovation is doing things better or doing better things, but there's an element of risk-taking that has to happen. So the process in itself needs to allow for some element of risk in how we're creating products, how we're trying to service value or create value within the ecosystem. So I think those are some of the gaps that I would point out.
Okay, thank you. Ola, I want to sort of latch onto her comment around risk. So, for instance, from the perspective of WMA Bank and Alert, we're a financial service provider, heavily regulated industry. Risk is top of mind, for us, particularly in the business of intermediation. So, what do you see as sort of the current issues that are leading to increased risk in the ecosystem play, given that you have a diverse group of players, some of them traditional organizations making their way into digital, some of them digital natives, and we are not all yet quite at the same level in terms of competence?
Okay, I'll answer that question from two perspectives, because there's two groups of people that I see, at least in the startup ecosystem, and I'll speak to that rather than the corporate. I have two corporate titans beside me, and what some people will not know is I've actually never had a job before. So I am not qualified at all to speak to the corporate side of things, but I understand the startup side of things really well. So I'll speak to that. In a startup ecosystem, you really have founders and operators, and both of these players are taking on different levels of risk. From the founder perspective, I think sort of the biggest issue that I see is actually around risk and taking risk. I was speaking at a bank a few months ago, and I said that there's the only difference that I see in becoming a founder versus an executive in any bank is that if I actually call a GM of WMA Bank to the stage and say, okay, inspire young people, how do you become a GM in WMA Bank? Then there's a relatively straightforward way to go about it. If you do the right qualifications, if you work hard, if you are competent, if you are smart, if you don't steal money from the bank, if you are, if you are diligent in your work, you do the late nights, and you get the right qualifications, then there's also almost like a 99% chance that one day, it might take longer for some people, maybe they don't have the social skills, they don't relate well to people, but 99% chance that at some point, they will give you the GM position. But if you call Aliko Dangote to this same stage, and you say, how do I start a $25 billion cement company? Then it's going to be quite difficult for him to give you a straightforward format to say, okay, he will tell you more or less the same things: work hard, hire the right people, trust God. But like a lot of people do all of those things, and they don't start a $25 billion cement factory. So I think around the founder ecosystem, it's about getting people that are willing to take that risk. It's quite a difficult thing to ask anybody to do, but I feel like, in the founder ecosystem, we do have a lot of founders, but not enough people that are willing to understand and take that entrepreneurial risk and say, I'm going to have to face this thing 100%. I spoke yesterday at a tech event, and I said, there's power there's a power in being on ground, being here, seeing customers, seeing your stakeholders, and it's very difficult to do that from Germany when you have a full-time job, right? So I think that's the issue in the founders ecosystem around risk. And I was actually thinking on the operational side, there's also a gap on that side in the startup ecosystem. And I was actually thinking this morning about perhaps writing a book about Nigerian executives. So people that have never started a company before, but are executives. So maybe you can help me figure out the title. I was going to call it Nigeria's Corporate Generals or something like that. And I think that in the executive ecosystem within startups, even if the founder is very good, sometimes it's quite difficult to get those first few generalist operators to build alongside with them, because the definition of entrepreneurship is really doing something that you cannot do alone. So getting those first few generalist operators and attracting them, and also they're taking an element of risk as well, because they could be working for WMA Bank, which is secure, but they're instead taking a risk with a founder to work for something that is not their market rate for a few years to create something with a founder. I think those are the two major gaps that I see in the ecosystem: the quality of founders in terms of the risk, enough people willing to take the real risk without having a job on the side, for instance, and also the executive ecosystem, the quality of the executive ecosystem. If you think about the American ecosystem, Jamie Dimon is not the founder of JP Morgan, but he's an executive that people know. It's a name that rings bells. Books have been written about him. And I think that executive ecosystem is still maturing in Nigeria as well, particularly in the startup in the startup ecosystem.
All right, thank you. Wale, so let me give you a slightly different flavor of the same question. What do you reckon gets us there faster? Is it for the more traditional players to increase their risk appetite, or for the less structured players to standardize?
Thanks. So you're right for making it a multidimensional question, because it's not that straightforward. I think, first of all, one of the things we need to realize is that for our ecosystem to thrive, there needs to be trust in the system. We can't have fraudulent players. We can't have people who build services or provide solutions that are not resilient. We cannot have services exposed to financial crime. WMA Bank, for example, takes on an inherent risk when they allow an external service connect to their infrastructure, because what then happens is, if that external service gets compromised, while they may build defensive layers, we don't know where data leakages might happen, and someone can go on the internet and say it was WMA Bank customers' data. The second part of risk is the fact that we have the human capital risk element. We are bleeding talent in the country. And to the previous point, I agree. Part of why you tend to see that we are not, the maturity journey to executive level, to competent specialists seems to be a bit funny, is because when we think people are about to mature, someone foreign picks them up. They just leave our system. Now, to solve the first problem around the risk, we need to help the smaller organization build more risk-resilient systems and standardize operations. The standardization cannot be avoided. Standardization also on the governance level. You cannot have an MD of a startup who has risky personality behaviors associated with spending of money or management of talent, because you are creating attrition in the system. You have the second part, which is the talent risk. And the talent risk is hard because it's a bit more macroeconomic in nature. What we as Microsoft have been doing is to put our mouth and our money, where we are most affected and where we know our customers are most affected. And so, for example, what we did was to partner with the government on a national digital skilling initiative. We have skilled, I believe, almost between 5,000 to 10,000 youths who can be hired by either fintech, startups, or the corporate organizations. And it's just our way of ensuring that even if we cannot solve a monetary policy issue, if we cannot solve inflation, if we cannot solve geographic or financial inclusion, at least let us ensure that as people are going, more people are coming into the system. And that's how I think we can best manage it for now.
Thank you very much. Really excellent thoughts across board. And I guess that takes me to, looking at specific ways we can begin to actually empower the ecosystem. So I hear you say one way is to ensure that the newer entrants / unstructured players need to standardize. Allow me to push back a little. There seems to be a prevailing school of thought that standardization will kill their creativity. So maybe I want to hear from Adobe Chief Innovation Officer. Is that true?
To be honest, I think it's it depends, right? I don't think it's there's a straightforward answer. I think we need the mix of creativity and innovation balanced with due process, right? Again, when you apply creativity and when you apply standardization is also equally important, but not at the expense of each other. For any organization that wants to keep evolving and being relevant and to continue creating value, standardization can only take you that far, right? You still need to reinvent, still need to keep reinventing your value and your, the service that you provide to your customers. And so it has to be a balance between the two, not one stifling the other, but the two actually in operation. So remember when I was talking about organizations creating an environment that allows creativity to thrive, that's what we mean, right? It doesn't come at the expense of not having standards put in place and being followed and being audited. But if you layer on top of that the fact that there's a culture that you are creating within the ecosystem that allows for risk-taking, responsible risk-taking, experimentation, taking incremental steps towards testing an idea or evaluating, some potential, and I think that's where the magic happens.
Great. Ola, just one more thought from you. So as someone in the VC space, how do you contribute to this role in terms of enforcing or encouraging, let's call that, encouraging governance and standardization?
So as a VC, when we invest in a company, we sometimes take a board seat, sometimes a term sheet that stipulates certain reporting standards and certain standards within the project or the product. During our due diligence process, we look quite rigorously at the standards that are already within the startup. We bring in talent if necessary, and sort of make sure that the product that they're bringing to market, sometimes because we're investing before there's even a product, is of the right standard, and we usually provide guidance through that process. And because we have an entire ecosystem within our portfolio of companies at different stages. So right now I have people that don't have a product, but I also have people raising sort of $25 million, $70 million Series A and B rounds. We can actually have mentorship within our portfolio from the from the later stage companies to the earlier stage companies that help those companies to abide by and adhere to some of the corporate governance standards that we need to build a resilient ecosystem. I think we look at some of the sort of American tech fails and the big corporate governance disasters there and think, oh, you know, if America could do it, we could do it as well. But that's not entirely true because, you know, we're still a small economy, we're still growing, and we rely on foreign direct investment. I'm not sure that America is going around looking for investment into the economy. They're a big economy already. We need foreign direct investment. In fact, in order for us to grow, we need other people to be able to take a bet on us and to invest in us. And that means that we need to, you know, be the most beautiful person at that beauty contest. With all the countries vying for capital, we need to stand out as the most resilient and attractive country for countries like America, countries in Europe to bring their capital.
All right. Thank you very much. And to the benefit of our 25 finalists in the room today, this is something for you guys to sort of pay attention to, regardless of the outcomes of today's events. Yes, we want you to be creative and disruptive, but for the ecosystem to thrive, like the panelists have said, we need to build secure, safe ecosystems that allow all players ultimately to do well. And so as you go through your ideation process, you need to think very critically about how what you are building sits within the context of the ecosystem that you are going to play. And I also like the word that we've used so far, which is resilience. It's one of the words that resonates with us as WMA Bank, having been in operation for 78 years now. The oldest indigenous Nigerian bank. It's quite a huge feat to accomplish, again, because you find that not many Nigerian companies outlive their founders. And so for us to be here 78 years after, it's quite a big deal. A round of applause, please. You know. But I want to take us, I guess, as we start to wind down the conversation, to the last bit, which is technology. Typically, when we're having conversations around ecosystems, technology seems to be the first thing. However, like the panel has rightly pointed out, things around people and governance, around process, actually take precedence over the tech, because if the tech sits on top of faulty processes, then it's going to give us faulty outputs, right? So Wale, naturally I will start with you here. What are some of the perspectives you have at Microsoft regarding how technology is helping to build more resilient ecosystems, away from simply just facilitating interactions? How is it helping, for instance, to solve the people issue, or at least minimize the people issue? How can it help minimize or mitigate the risk issues and all of that?
All right, thank you. So, and I know I shared this at the last management retreat with WMA Bank. in Microsoft, we use a guiding principle, which is called tech intensity. And it's a very important perspective because it governs our own corporate policy to technology. Tech intensity basically states that every organization, which are all becoming digital, like you alluded to, need to be, first of all, the best adopter of best-in-class technology. And by being an adopter of best-in-class technology, it means, one, you need to be able to build capabilities that are native to your own value proposition that you're introducing to any market. And two, you need to be smart enough to know when you should leverage commodity technology so that you are not using human capital on things that have already been standardized globally, especially when you're looking into areas like financial reporting standards, infrastructure standards. You don't want to build those kind of things yourself. You want to layer on top of what has already been built by commodity providers like Microsoft and even our competition, Google, Amazon. The second part of tech intensity is capabilities, which is the same way we are building adopting technology, the same way we are adopting cloud, the same way we are leveraging DevOps to drive operations, the same way we are looking at enterprise security, the same way we are thinking around data monetization and data democratization. We must think about the culture and the capabilities of the people working. Because what then happens is when you don't allow people to mature their digital IQ at the same pace at which you want to innovate, it becomes haphazard, and the recipients of your technology, in case of whether they are citizens or consumers, will see that gap. They will see that there is that lack of, you are more cosmetic in nature, but the core of how you behave, how you operate does not suggest that you are a digital-focused organization. And for us, that's our guiding principle. When you marry these two together successfully, you will have a culture of continuous improvement, continuous adoption of technology, because it would force you at every milestone to constantly reevaluate yourself and ask yourself, can we do things better? It makes you less susceptible to becoming monolithic, whereby you now have feedback where you hear executives say things like, this is how we've always done it before. That is the most dangerous language you can hear in any evolving society. And I think that's how you need to approach it. Then you can then go into the specific tools of technology themselves.
Great. I really like that we didn't jump into specifics around maybe tools and solutions and all of that. Adobe, let me come to you. As an operator in this space, how do you balance the need for the transformation and tech enablement versus cost and your responsibilities for your P&L and eventually to your stakeholders, shareholders, investors, as the case may be?
I think the way to answer that would be to look at what is important to us as an organization at InterSwitch. Whatever decisions that we're making, our strategy is heavily driven by the customers that we serve. We put the customer at the center of those decisions. Now, when we're adopting technology within the organization, it may be from a automation standpoint. It could be to get our processes to be more efficient, or it could be at leveraging a technology that helps us to meet a customer need well. Whether you're looking at it from the process side or directly from the customer side, we are looking at that agility that allows us to still ultimately service that customer better, right? So when we layer that in terms of the value to our customers versus the cost, then it becomes an easier decision. I always say we don't do technology for technology's sake. Technology is supposed to solve a problem, and when we put the customer, the problem, and the value we're trying to create at the center of that, then it's just quite easy to balance out that.
Okay, let me push a little further. So, like I said, I have 25 odd startups in the room, probably more, where they don't have an existing customer base to consider, right? Many of them are still looking to drive traction. So how does this apply specifically in their own context?
Okay, I think to the applicants, again, like I said, technology is supposed to enable, right? But what you kind of put as your North Star is the problem that you're hoping to solve. Now, we've talked about the concept of incremental value. We've talked about the concept of agility, right? If you're building upon an idea that you're trying to test out, we don't want you to go out and build out everything at scale, right? You want to be able to build a prototype, a POC, an MVP, something lean and mean, right? That does not require a lot of resources on your end. You can take that to market, right? I always tell people, sometimes when you want to test an idea, you actually may not even require a lot of technology to do it. It could be a conversation. It could be a hallway conversation. It could be carrying out some social experiments, right, to test the viability of an idea, right? So don't always think about it from a point of view that you must leverage something something very, very expensive to actually test the validity of your ideas. But the flip side to that is that again, we are talking about the ecosystem, right? There are lots of resources within the ecosystem, right? We have, in InterSwitch, for instance, we have a developer community, right? There's access to a lot of resources, to a sandbox environment, to APIs that you can integrate to, right? And it's the same as well on Wale's side, right? So there are resources that you can leverage without a lot of upfront investment in funds to even test at least the validity of your idea and then incrementally build out those ideas from there. Right? So again, technology is important, but always balance it out in terms of what am I trying to do, what is important to validate now as I scale this idea further and further.
Okay, thank you. So I've hopefully saved the best for last. I want to speak to, I think, one of perhaps the most contentious topics when it comes to the ecosystem. So earlier when we were going through sort of the definitions, we spoke about building common value and all of that. But a typical contentious issue that we often encounter is around ownership of the customer within the ecosystem, right? And I think closely linked to that is ownership of data. We can keep adding, sort of several layers to that, right? And so my question is there an ideal structure to ownership of customer and or data within an ecosystem, or is it a race to be the first and hope everybody else then has to plug into you anyway, in which case they don't have a choice? Let me start with Ola.
I think that's something that evolves over time. So if anybody can remember Yahoo search engine, Google was a contractor. And the Yahoo was the dominant thing. And then you now see in one corner, powered by Google. And at that stage, obviously, Google was still trying to grow. Yahoo was a big customer for them. But they evolved to a point that they could actually launch their own search engine and said, this joint venture is going to come to an end, and we're going to launch our own search engine. Now that could have failed. It could have failed woefully, but it didn't. And now Google is the dominant search engine. So relationships and joint ventures tend to evolve over time. And I can remember Microsoft as well. Microsoft was almost tied to, I think it was the IBM computer. And it was a contract between Microsoft and IBM laptop or computer. And that was the only thing that Microsoft was on, like an off-taker. But now, obviously, I would say I haven't seen an IBM laptop in a long time. The dominant laptops have changed. And now Microsoft is sort of ubiquitous across different devices, including Apple and HP and Lenovo. It's the dominant operating system in the world. So I think that ownership and that equation changes all the time. And I wouldn't want a startup with 2 customers to start arguing with the bank over who owns the data. First of all, start. Those relationships can evolve over time to whatever they turn out to be. But if you spend a lot of time negotiating with, a large bank over, I want to own this, I want this term, you may not get started in the first place. So I think, first of all, take what you can get, and then these relationships, like the two examples that I've given you, begin to evolve all the time, particularly in the financial services industry. And this is why I have so much respect for WMA Bank, because it's not easy to stay in this industry at all. It's one of the, like healthcare, the big hospital is still the big hospital. That St. Nicholas was a hospital where my parents were around. It's still very much here. But in the banking industry, there were like 130 banks at one point. They all seem to have merged into each other. New banks have come up. It's a highly competitive industry, and it's also an industry that's prone to disruption. So I think that, start and then see where those relationships go, particularly in the financial services industry that is, just being disrupted and, rocked from side to side every day. Don't spend too much time arguing over who owns the customer when you're a startup.
Okay, Wale, I guess I will flip. She's given us the perspective from the startup side. She's firmly on their side, but from sort of the view of the large corporate in that equation, what are your thoughts?
So good question. I think first of all, in Microsoft, we are careful to separate the term of data ownership from the data custodian, right? You are still the data owner. And it's important that we remind people that the customer is the owner of his own data. The custodians of the data is usually shared, usually if you have a partnership scenario. And we do encourage a scenario where for both organizations to thrive, you share this information in a coordinated manner, whereby if I am introducing a piece of value to you, and I want it to be targeted at your customers, then you own the customer data, but you're leveraging the value I'm introducing and vice versa. That is how Microsoft will work with our partner ecosystem. And we have partners who have grown to be extremely huge, leveraging Microsoft's customer-owned data. But because for us, it's the outcome that matters. I do agree that when the question of governance comes to play, the custodian now needs to be a lot more prominent. And to be fair, it is usually either one, the person delivering the value being consumed, that has to guarantee certain assurances around the customer data and that can claim to own the customer data, or in a situation where you're a fintech and you're partnering with WMA is the larger party here. So usually they own the customer, in quote, and you are the value provider to that customer. And then over time, you would inevitably build your own customer base off the value you had been introducing to WMA SMEs customers, for example.
All right, excellent point. I think it has been an interesting conversation so far. Thank you for your really interesting perspectives. Just as we wind this down, I guess to take any closing thoughts from everyone, let me start from Adobe.
Okay, I think I'll take an opportunity to congratulate the applicants, the top 25 or the top 10. It's no easy feat to be here. It's something commendable to see young people who have an idea in their hearts and then who are also following their dreams to execute. Just to say well done for the efforts put in. And I think I wanted to say something else as well. We've been throwing a word around here called resilience. We've been saying resilience, right? For anybody who has been on any journey as an entrepreneur, we know that that's one of the superpowers that you need to have. So just to say that this is just a good platform, right, on which greater and greater things can happen and will happen, but just hang in there, keep pushing, keep creating, because the solutions that are going to power the next generation is in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that we've been speaking a lot about technology, and if I was to say anything from sort of reviewing 1,000 startup companies every single year for the past 10 years, I would say, that the biggest sort of misconception is that the technology is a business. So make sure that you're building a business, not an app, would be the first thing. And then the second thing is there may be a gap in the market, but make sure that there's also a market in the gap. Because as you go to scale and raise money, investors will be looking for traction. They'll be looking for how many customers, how many paying customers you need. And remember, if you're in a B2B business and you want $100 million outcome, then you need to find people you need to start with the end in mind in terms of thinking, how do I build this into a $100 million business? You need 100 people to pay you $1 million, or you need 10,000 people to sort of pay you a certain amount of money to get to $100 million. So try and start with the end in mind and think, okay, this technology has to generate $100 million in revenue to be venture backable, and work backwards. How many customers do I need to do this? And is there a big enough gap in the market for me to use this app to gain that number of customers? Thank you.
So I'm not as knowledgeable as Ada and Ola in business. I'm not going to venture there. Two things I want to share, importantly, for the startups in this room. I think the first thing is, when you want to start pushing your product out there, partnerships are probably what will make you succeed. You should also realize that WMA Bank as an organization is doing what they can. You shouldn't forget also that the largest databases of the mass markets that exist in this country actually sit with the government, whether it is the Bank of Agriculture or the SME investments from the central bank. And they are looking for SMEs like you who can bring products that can expand the penetration beyond the more congested areas of this country. And then in the spirit of partnership also, Microsoft invests in your growth. We do provide for 12 months under our Microsoft for Startups free usage of our technologies, our Azure platforms, our modern work technology, so you can build structure around how you use technology and controls. In addition, in terms of building the workforce, you can also work with the Microsoft philanthropies. We would be also able to support you in terms of talent over time who need to feed into your workforce, into your team as you grow. And we will continue to invest and support your journey till you become the next unicorn of Africa. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Wale. So very quickly, as we wind this down, I'll need some help to run this. Do we have questions from members of the audience? I think we have about enough time to take 3. I see Edie, Wale, Ajimisi's hand up over there, sir. And I can take 2 more questions. If there are no hands, we're happy to deal with just the one.
Sorry, what do you do for a living, sir?
He pays my salary.
Okay, thank you very much. For my question, I think I would draw an analogy for successfully and safely driving a car. You probably will need an accelerator and probably a brake. I see the operators as accelerator and regulators, possibly a brake. One of the things that I don't think we've done well here is we have not brought a regulator into this discussion. And I think, in my view, that represents a gap. But let me ask the question. Today, as operators, we see that we are growing at a pace faster than the regulators. And everywhere in the world, innovation outpaces regulation. But my question to the panel is this: what new thinking can we adopt as regulators to bridge that gap? Because this ecosystem can't get matured until we bridge that gap. So the question to you is that what deliberate, intentional, new thinking can we adopt to bring that gap a bit closer so that we can go at a faster pace? Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Anybody want to take a shot at that?
Okay, Dr. Ola.
I think that actually the regulators in the fintech space have done, at least SEC, I know, have actually done some regulatory, some fintech sandboxes, and I think CBN has as well, where they bring a lot of startups together and they innovate within a safe environment before releasing their products to the market. And I think that that's super important, that they understand regulation. When you have an app that's an MVP, that is basically sort of a minimum viable product and doesn't have any customers and is not making any money, and maybe they've scraped together some money from their parents and a few relatives and a cousin to put the thing together, I think it's not the time to start asking for a banking license yet of billions. But it's, I think both CBN and SEC have done these sandboxes for different areas of fintech, and I know that some of the startups in our portfolio have been participants, at least in the SEC one, and that gives sort of the time needed for innovation. But yes, like I have a course actually on bank regulation on my YouTube, and I always I said in the course that we're going to Basel 10. Because every time that they release a new set of Basel rules, the banks always quickly outsmart it, and they will go to the next one. So regulators follow innovation, but I think that these sandboxes and these sorts of innovation spaces within the regulatory framework can help bridge the gap.
Thank you for that. So what I'll do is I'll just take a question from each row. This row has been accounted for. Your name, what you do, and your question. And if it's addressed to any of the panelists, please, very briefly. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the session. My name is Michael Onyeweke. Okay, I'm the Special Assistant to the Deputy Managing Director. So I imagine that the startups who have in the room, they must have experienced some challenges, or they will experience some challenges around hosting their data in the cloud. For instance, my experience with some startups have shown that you probably need maybe Azure or AWS, in order to continue building before you go live. Now, this comes at a cost. I hear Wale say that they offer, let's say, free 12 months access to their services. But in some cases, 12 months is not enough to build, right? Some startups take up to like even 24 months to build. So what would be your advice to startups that fall in this category, who probably don't have the financial capacity to pay for Azure services or even AWS, and yet they need to go live? So what would be your advice to such people? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. It's an easy answer. You go to your family and your cousin. I'm just kidding.
So first things first is, without question, the cloud is by far the biggest accelerator of any ecosystem, especially in terms of building products for startup. And the reason is, what is the other option? The other option is you trying to build and own your infrastructure. And how many people can build that? How many people can own elaborate data centers with the kind of controls required to run the kind of services startups are running? How many? It's only the larger organizations like banks that can afford to do that. The second thing is that the cloud allows you to start small, and I mean like very small. I, as a person, I use the cloud for personal projects that have nothing to do with Microsoft. I use sometimes, in some cases, third-party cloud services that I can afford, and how much am I earning? So the point is, the cloud does allow for that affordability point in terms of building over time. I think where people get it wrong is in how they architect for the cloud. You shouldn't be spinning up resources on a cloud environment that you know you don't need, knowing that it's going to incur a cost. You should only use what you need, and that is the principle of the cloud. It is as a service. You only turn on services when they are needed, and when they are not needed, please put it off. So a sandbox, for example, should not be running 24/7. When your guys are not actively building, turn it off. It's not incurring any cost. The cloud provider is not billing you for that period. And so that's basically, I think, the fastest way to respond to your question in terms of cloud cost and adoption.
Okay. Have one. I'll come to that row. We have someone in front. Okay, no, I already have one here. Let me just quickly take her. Very quickly, your name and what you do and your question.
Hello everyone. I'm looking at Lawa. I'm into cloud security and cybersecurity, and I also have a cloud community known as Cloudado. So my question is for the man from Microsoft. So, okay, Wally. Okay. So, I have a cloud community known as Cloudado. We have almost 300 members. It's still new. It's like 6 months. So I want to ask how Microsoft can partner with my cloud community in terms of learning resources, exam vouchers, or maybe holding sessions like webinars.
All right, thank you, and I'll answer this quickly. So there are 2 things we can support you with. So first of all, through our philanthropies, we can equip you from ground up in terms of capacity building and technology solutions. We offer a service, it's free. It's called the Microsoft Cloud Society, and right here on your phone, you can access it, cloudsociety.microsoft.com. It provides you with access to every single Microsoft course in the world for free. You can learn any of our technologies, no matter how simple or complex. You can decide your maturity level, whether you're a beginner, you're intermediate, or you're advanced. And those are things that you can run within your own cloud, your own community as a curriculum. So you can build your own curriculum in terms of the capacity building exercises you want to position to different stakeholders of your community and leverage these resources for free. But yes, we do provide these things available for organizations like yours and groups like yours to thrive in our environment also. I hope that responds to your question. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, man. Rukayat, your phone, is there a alert app on your phone? No? Okay, I was going to give you a goodie bag. Yeah, so if you haven't downloaded Alert yet, it's not too late. I'll keep the goodie bag for you till Hackaholics 5.0. We have one last question here.
All right, my name is Christiana Ibnwe, and I'm a product manager. I would like to direct my question to Dr. Ola Brown. So when it comes to owning or starting your own startup as a young person, getting your skills, talents, gathering the right team, and putting yourself out there is not enough, because most times I've seen most startups fail despite getting the right team, putting the right risk and all of that. So my question is, why do we still fail? Is it just about the experience or getting operators and all that? Why do we still fail? Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Christiana. Who's the question for? Dr. Okay.
So that's such an interesting question, and I think I did address it in the panel. I think the example that I gave on my Twitter was becoming a PwC partner. It's actually very, very, very difficult to become a partner at PwC because you have to work extremely hard. And you have to do that for a number of years. People have to know you, you have to have the social capital, etc. But if you've been there for 12 years and you've been working diligently and you have the qualification, you've been spending the late nights at the office, you've gotten the right partners, and at year 12, they haven't made you partner, then it's like the problem might be spiritual. It might not be physical again. But if you've been at business for 12 years, some businesses are still loss-making. And the person is doing everything right, the person is working every hour, but somehow it's just not working. So I think that's what you're speaking to actually is the inherent risk in business. So you can be diligent, you can be competent, you can be smart, and entrepreneurship will still embarrass you. There's a story in America that I like speaking about where the guy won the Nobel Prize in finance. He's a PhD, and he started a hedge fund, which was using algorithms. I think it was called Long Capital or something like this. Now, this guy won the Nobel Prize, meaning that there's nobody, when it comes to finance, he has distinguished himself amongst probably like 20 people in the whole of history. That company failed so badly that it was the first company that had to, the first hedge fund that had to be bailed out by the central bank. No hedge fund had failed so badly in the history of America before. And he was a Nobel Prize winner. So I think it's about being able to, the advice that I'm going to give you is being able to find a product that works, find something that the market needs. You do need to work extremely hard. You do need to attract the right people. But there's an inherent risk in business that your skills and your hard work that might work for you in a defined career where there are expectations in that career might not work for you in entrepreneurship. And I think that when you start a business, that's something that you have to accept. So you put everything into that business, but at the end of the day, it might still fail. And as in the venture capital world, we invest knowing that quite a few of these companies will fail. So we put our money, and that's why, venture is a high-risk, high-return asset class, because we're investing in early stage ventures, knowing that there's such a high failure rate. But don't let that discourage you. I think if it's something that you really want to do and you understand the risks, and you do understand that, it could be that you work for 7 to 10 years and the business still fails. And you could have been in a highly paid job during that time. But instead, you're doing this and you're ready to spend your life like that, then, it's also a rewarding way to spend 10 years if you acknowledge that at the end of the day, it could fail. But if you don't like that aspect of risk, then, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being an entrepreneur within an organization and being able to build with the stability of a salary. And there's lots of executives around Nigeria that you can speak to see whether, you want to follow the entrepreneurial path or whether you want to be, a highly paid executive that still has the opportunity to be entrepreneurial, but within a system that's slightly more forgiving.
Thank you very much. I couldn't have responded any better. Round of applause. Unfortunately, we won't be able to take any more questions now. But thank you once again to Wale, Dr. Ola, and Adaobi. Round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And Tunde, fantastic job moderating. Please, can we have a quick photo up before we have the closing address by the Chief Digital Officer of WMA Bank in the person of Olusegun Adeniyi. Christiana, by the way, do you have an alert app? You can show me right now. Open your phone, let me see. So if you do, I'll get a goodie bag for you as well. Please, a round of applause again to our panelists and a moderator. We just finished talking about pioneering transformational path, empowering ecosystems via people, processing, and technology. Wale from Microsoft mentioned one thing that I really love that Microsoft are doing, which is as people are going, we're putting more in the system. And with that kind of strategy, literally, it's always flowing. Can we also have some of the top executives as well on stage, if we can accommodate that for the photo op, being that this is the major and maiden panel session for the Digital Summit. Dr. Ola talked about basically relationships are key to innovation. I remember the days of high five. I'm not sure if anybody remember that. If you know high five, okay, good. That was once upon a time numero uno. Even as recent as BlackBerry, and the list goes on and on. Innovation is the only constant change. And of course, Adaobi talked about creativity and innovation, balancing that with due process and standardization. There's an acronym that stuck with me over 10 years ago. It's called ROWE, R-O-W-E. It means result-oriented working environment. And it basically speaks to ensuring that you get the job done. Okay, no matter where you are, you don't need to clock in 9 to 5. If you're online, you can do it as long as you deliver on your deliverables. But that might not work in every organization, but we've seen that being adopted with a lot of the modern and big startups, tech companies, where you can work from anywhere in the world as long as you deliver. Once again, a round of applause to our panelists for doing such a fantastic job in analyzing some of the questions that were asked and the topics as well. Of course, we can't handle everything in one day. in one summit, but the seed has been sown, and it's up to you to water that seed and grow from here on. Hopefully we'll have some success stories at the next Hackaholics, where people will be inspired to do more from this particular occasion. We do have the breakout session coming up next. The ushers in charge of the breakout sessions, if you are here, please do make your way to your assigned and designated breakout sessions. Room 1 is the future of financial services, exploring emerging trends, technologies, and business models, reshaping the financial services. Room 2 is venture capital and funding, viable innovation for scale. And room 3 is strategic technology for impact and societal change, transforming today and tomorrow's world. The breakout session will be roughly for about an hour, and you have a chance to also interact and mingle. But for now, to give the closing remarks, please do welcome Olusegun Adeniyi, the Chief Digital Officer at WMA Bank. A round of applause, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here, thank you for listening, and thank you for participating today. It brings absolute delight to me to be physically present here, but more importantly, to get an opportunity to formally bring today's event to closure. I have 4 things I would like to achieve today, and Oscar's helped me with one of them. First, I'd like to thank and appreciate you all for coming and for being witnesses to our commencement of another series of steps for exponential scale. Secondly, I'd like to appreciate my employers, WMA Bank, and my colleagues for the great toil that has been undertaken to bring this event to fruition. Thirdly, I'd like to attest that my remarks today are purely an adjournment of today's event for us to meet again very soon. So we're not closing, we're just moving forward. And lastly, like Oscar started, share the details around the next phase of today's events. On this note, on behalf of myself, the Planning and Organizing Committee, WMA Bank, and ALAT, I would like to express our deepest gratitude to you here physically present at the event at any point, listening to our recording, and our partners. I'd like to say a big thank you for your support in the ecosystem. Thank you very much for listening, and more importantly, for participating very actively in the ecosystem. Today's event has been primarily focused on innovation and disruption at different levels, and I look forward to seeing transformative ideas to leapfrog from where we all are today and stress the fact that this is our time to shine. Let's show the power of alliances, and borrowing from the African proverb, which interestingly the keynote speaker alluded to, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Please join us in this position of going far as we endeavor to work collaboratively and live and soar on the power of alliances. At WMA, our vision is to be the dominant digital platform in Africa, offering seamless financial services. This has been super instrumental in making WMA and ALAT become a great place to work, and for this I am thankful to my colleagues, my employer for the empowerment, the grit, and the zeal to affirm what it takes to achieve this vision. Thank you very much. So my third objective, please go. You may. Thank you. So my third objectives, my third objective, ecosystem players, we are grafted. This is not finality. Today, my remarks mark an adjournment of our celebration of the birth of the most intelligent bank. And again, I would welcome an applause to that. Thank you. Just as you may have seen from the publicity materials, we've curated a number of breakout sessions to help galvanize the different areas of the ecosystem. In a few minutes, we're going to break out into 3 breakout sessions. The first one speaking to the future of financial services. The second one around venture capital and funding of viable innovation for scale. And the third one would be around strategic technology for impact and societal change. There are directions labeled around the venue to lead to the respective breakout rooms. I believe that all attendees have registered their preferred breakout rooms, but there are hosts and hostesses also wearing various tags that will support you with questions and also direct you to the rooms. Once the sessions are completed, we will reconvene in this hall and lunch will be served in the main auditorium, and we want everyone to witness the crowning of the brightest minds across our universities in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, partners, industry stakeholders, colleagues, leaders and future leaders, and collaborators, I enjoin you today to ride on the power of alliances. At WMA and ALAT, we have demonstrated superior competency that have broken boundaries between other industries and financial services. We have been around for 78 years, and that speaks and means a lot. As I look forward to further engagement as we strengthen this industry and make greatness common, I want to say thank you once again for being here and wish that you enjoy what's left of your day and weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Segun. Once again, Olusegun Adeni, Chief Digital Officer, WMA Bank. The last 70 plus years has been quite interesting for WMA. I'm so excited and looking forward to the next 70. And the very simple truth is that a lot of you at the back of the hall, in the middle of the hall, are those that will take the helm. Hopefully I won't be emceeing in the next 78 years, so I won't be here. But the technology lives on, the brand lives on, innovation still lives on. And talking about innovation, we're going to need to clear this hall. When you come back after the breakout session in roughly about an hour, this hall will have transformed. And the highlight when we do come back is to meet our 10 finalists. And they will get to pitch, you will get to meet the judges as well. And more importantly, you'll get to, take a step into the minds of some of our brightest and the best with the solutions that they provide. The sessions have been indicated, and please do take along your personal belongings if you do have any with you, being your bag, your phone, husband or wife, boyfriend or girlfriend, give or take. So please do not leave anything behind. It's very important because we're going to clear this hall. The breakout sessions, I think hopefully will be streamed as well. For those online, stay tuned. The show has only just begun. And after the break, when we get back in about an hour, we'll get a chance to hear from very key personalities in the ecosystem when it comes to technology. We'll also get to meet our 10 finalists, and we will get to witness crowning the Hackaholic for the year 2023, season 4 or edition 4 of this, and of course the Maiden Summit. So that does it, ladies and gentlemen. Please, wherever you are, gladly and gently just rise. The ushers will guide you to your respective breakout sessions. Don't forget the conversation is still going on online, and the hashtags are there as well. So once again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for being part of the first part of the inaugural Digital Summit. And of course, the Hackaholics will be back after this. To those moderating the breakout session, please do stick to time. It's very important that we are back here within the hour so we can attend to the major reason as to why we are here. I am Oscar Oyinsa. It's a great pleasure. And I'll be seeing you in roughly an hour. Thank you.
Banking life made easy. Cheap transfer, no hidden charges. Lightning speed when sending. Each other up are better than this. I know you don't work for your money. You don't need stress when you spend it. Just a few steps that loot a lot first, and you don't solve half of your worries. Share the views you want pay. I been the money you want save. The solution don't take. All you need is a lot again. A lot every day. A lot. Oh, a lot is the way. A lot again. A lot. Banking life made easy. Cheap transfer, no hidden charges. Lightning speed when sending.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, it's very important we make our way.
Alati wetele, alati wetele. Banking life made easy. Cheap transfer, no hidden charges. Lightning speed when sending. With your up and better than this. I know you don't work for your money. You